I haven't done this in years. So I think I'm live, and I think all my volume and whatnot is the way it's supposed to be. But I am still learning. So I need just a moment here to figure. All right, seems like it's working. I'm gonna assume it's working. I can't even tell if anyone's in here, but you know what? I am just going to dive right in. This stream is partially a selfish venture, because sometimes when you work really hard on something for a while, you kind of want to talk about how you did it, especially when you did it mostly entirely solo. So I've got a couple of ideas for this stream. I figure most of the people watching behind the scenes on The Will to Keep Losing have already seen The Will to Keep Losing. So rather than watch through it with the volume up, we're going to mostly scrub through it. We'll have a handful of scenes maybe that we'll make a point of stopping to watch. Let's see here. Let's go to PP Clips. Got a bunch of different versions in here. Let me get the just fun fact. This is my very, very first time in my whole video creation career where final V1 was the final. I had to do 0 re-renders. There was one error that I caught after it went live. I was pissed about that, but that happens. All right, so I'm gonna show off my my terrible Adobe layouts. I have had to jump systems so many times as a result of just working a variety of streams or working at home that I've become really accustomed to a lot of the default layouts that Adobe presents. But I do quickly jump in and throw in a handful of my own keybinds just to get things rolling. But yeah, we're just gonna explore everything in Premiere today, so it's easier for me to jump around. I've also never successfully gotten Premiere to broadcast audio on OBS, so this is going to be an interesting experiment. Can't tell if there's anyone here. If there's not,
would they make him say that when he doesn't act like that?
Might have to check this myself.
But if you read more into the nuance of it, it's more like he's saying, hey, everyone, look to me. Look at me versus to me.
Oh, hi, Brent. Brent, does the
it's a rally cry.
It's like, you hear the Premiere? The Premiere audio?
Beautiful.
Thank you, Brent. There might not be like many concurrent views when all is said and done, but I'm very excited to just ramble about this piece at least. I need to see if I can hear Premiere on the stream. Let's find out. Very excited to just ramble about this piece at least. I need to see if I can hear Premiere on the stream.
If you're looking for a dramatic story,
oh, that's so cool. Finally.
This isn't a documentary.
Before, something about the way my audio card was set up,
on winning,
I could never get Premiere to just play on the stream.
Before we talk about winners,
it would just like bypass
let's talk about losers.
This OBS output, but for some reason it works now. All right, so we're not just gonna watch through this whole thing. I'm just gonna dive in and kind of start talking about it. If anybody shows up with questions, feel free to throw out some questions, but I am just diving straight into the sucker. So first and foremost, actually, I'm gonna wait until there's like maybe 3 more people here, because I feel like there's maybe a dozen people that will find the technical breakdown of this interesting, and it's maybe some of them will pop by. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, Brant. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your help here. So we've got basically this little intro here. I just want to show one of the things that's really hard about having a cool idea for something that requires execution is you have to like, you know, mock up the thing that you have in your mind, but you can't really do that if you like, you know, I was trying to workshop this idea, show this idea to people like Brent and be like, hey, what do you think of this? And so like, this is what the very first like iteration of that Marth intro video looked like. Where I was like doing this weird split screen thing and the audio starts getting desynced. And then because I was feeling lazy, I don't like mixing my audio as I go. I always mix at the end. I knew I wanted a little delay thingy here, but if I was going to bounce this to a different program, I didn't want to have to do the work here to make the delay sound good. So I actually just duplicated this and created my own delay. And that's an audio edit that actually made it all the way through to the final. That's the final, just used that. Oh, thank you, Itero, I appreciate it. I want to share my knowledge because I know there's like a lot of people now that really want to make content. And I have a lot of like feelings, I guess, about what makes compelling content, especially in like the gaming and esports space. I feel like competitive gaming is a challenging area to tell stories about. And we're going to talk about some of those challenges, I guess, and talk about how I tried to address them in this video. I will say, like, right up front, so much content has to thread this line between being informative for the audience, because you kind of have to assume that you want, I mean, if you limit your video to a certain audience, you have to be happy with like a certain level of performance, I guess. But, you know, a lot of people that make Smash videos want a lot of people to see them. And so there's always some layer of explanation that's required in those videos to make them make sense. You have to have some bit where you say, this is what it looks like to play Melee good. Oh, people love Melee because it's like jazz music. People love Melee because you run really fast and Captain Falcon can do this and Fox can do this. You want to tell somebody who doesn't know much about Melee, you kind of have to make a lot of those conceits. And so to me, that also feels really impersonal. Like sometimes it's a sign of lacking a community connection with somebody when you have to kind of do that first layer of explanatory stuff. And like, you know, it's a necessity when you're talking to a wider group of people. But I think with this piece in particular, I just wanted to bypass that. I see my thing clipping here. Let me turn that down. Well, yeah, I think it's there. I think that's kind of part of it. Is I don't think you really can, or at least I think that this is my best attempt to do that in some ways, and I'll talk about what that means. Because on the one hand, I realize that this is a little bit opaque to people who are not involved in Melee, but I think the techniques that I used here could be applied to a different storyline. This piece, as happy as I am with how it turned out, it is fundamentally a failure. Like this, it was meant to be several other things before it was ever this. It was supposed to be for a diehard Melee player from the get-go. When we first interviewed PPMD, it was, we are going to do the deep history of Marth. And we'll show some of the stuff in here. I did not go very deep in that final edit because it made the piece feel really imbalanced when I started getting really into the weeds there. But we were talking about some very obscure Marth players. And then we also did a whole other interview around the corner about basically the whole history of Falco. And the conceit that we had from the beginning was, this is really only going to resonate with or make sense to hardcore Melee players. And then I think that if you are trying to tell a story without doing that explanation, you need to have stakes that are distinct from the gameplay, and you need to get used to telling your story via gameplay in a way that doesn't necessarily make like it doesn't necessarily line up exactly with reality. There are a few ways that I do that. We'll kind of dive into that later. I'm going to step out of the abstract and talk a little bit about like the actual process that I took here, because this is not done in After Effects or anything. This is, I'm going to have to open a different project to show this off. Let me find this. I think this is my other project. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I worked hard on it for a long time, which is part of why like I feel so compelled to kind of share a lot of this. Oh, you're perfect. All right, so this is one of the videos that I used here. Let's reset everything here. So this is a raw clip from what I had filmed. I actually wound up taking, do I have my gameplay sequence here? Yes, okay, so I had to make a bunch of different gameplay like string outs right here. Okay, so in this case, what I had to do was record the gameplay. Oh shoot, where did I put it? I'll find this somewhere a little bit later, I'm sure. But I had to actually record the gameplay in widescreen, render it out in widescreen, stretch it horizontally, because the HDMI converter that I was using could only output widescreen, and I needed it to display 4:3 on these. So I had to basically stretch it so that the adapter would squeeze it back down again in the process of going to the CRT. But this is all filmed directly on the CRTs. I recorded, you can see here the gameplay, or the VHS time counter is rolling because these are in fact playing off of VHS tapes. I really wanted the gameplay to feel nice and unified, because when you are using a mixture of old footage, especially old gameplay footage, there's so many instances where it was just recorded poorly. Someone recorded it at 60 FPS, but something about their janky setup like meant that every 12th frame is repeated. There's so many times where the aspect ratio is slightly off, and it can be a real pain, you know, if you're starting with something like this. You have like all these gameplay clips, and they're all you know, slightly different aspect ratios, recorded slightly differently. It looks like ass, just all combined together like this. And so I could either painstakingly like go through and refine them all, or put some sort of filter on them or something like that, or I could just say like, I want this to look sweet, which is what I did, and go in and actually like record the clips that I wanted directly to VHS, and then go through and play and record it. This had a lot of other benefits too. Later in this video, the left TV indicates like historical things that have happened, and the right TV indicates like modern day PPMD, making history. And it helps that the color temperature of the TVs, like the native color, the way they show color, it's really obvious when we get to, let me find a Pokemon Stadium image here. So it's really obvious with the green on Pokemon Stadium. Or actually, here's good too. You can see how much more saturated the green is on the left over here, and how much like bluer it is over here. And then in motion, the right TV, this is like a part where it's fast forwarding. Let's see. Find a different segment here. But basically, you can tell like the TVs have a radically different color temperature. Here we go. You can really see it here. This is much like bluer. This is a little bit like less saturated. This one's actually a tiny bit sharper. It doesn't look like it in this shot, but in the close-ups, it's a lot more evident how much sharper that right TV is. So a lot of benefits with like going that recording to VHS and filming the actual CRT route. Big payoffs like later on, especially. So let me dive back into this. I'm going to scrub through. We don't need to rewatch everything. This interview setting was gorgeous. I mean, it was just incredible. Prague and I drove down from Virginia in 2017 to conduct these interviews, and we asked Kevin where he wanted to go, and he was like, this place over here, I love this place. It's the place that I go when I really want to unwind, when I want to like do a lot of my theory crafting about Marth. And so it just felt super appropriate. I'm not going to show off the Falco interview that we did there yet, because maybe one day I'll do something with it, but I don't know. It's hard because like half the people in that video are fucking banned. Stack it up chant, iconic. Let me bring this way down. There we go. So stack it up chant, obviously super iconic. Got these Daigo interview quotes, or excuse me, these Daigo book quotes. I love the will to keep winning. I picked it up at Evo 2014, I think. Super fun book to read. Is this on camera? Yeah. Really great book. It's kind of hard to find in English now, I realized, because I wanted to get another copy so I could have like a prop copy for the video and then my own. But I love it specifically because a lot of the advice in there is really good advice, even if you don't win at stuff. You know, it's less of like a story or even a how-to book, and way more of like this half memoir, half self-reflection. It's a little bit about Daigo's life, a little bit about Daigo's philosophy, and it doesn't really have much of a point other than just trying to paint a picture for what drives Daigo. So that was obviously a big part of what inspired this video, except I am a loser. So I had to take a different angle with it here. So I went through and I was, in fact, the first version of this video was going to be called How to Be a Loser. And then I realized that was a little too tutorial-y. And I was actually just reading The Will to Keep Winning. I was like, wow, a lot of these quotes work pretty well as like how to handle losing over and over. And so that's what led to the idea of just grabbing 5 of these quotes, each of which kind of tells you a little bit about what is going to happen in that next segment. And it was the perfect way to set up this like meditative vibe, because this is very much an abstract story, right? There's not a lot of like concrete things that this tries to say about Apex or about Marth or anything like that. God, I hate my own voice, just like everybody else. Let's see here. So a little bit of this intro. A lot of this was I think my attempt to just quickly set the scene for people who might not be super deeply invested in gaming or anything like that. Why are we at this giant fucking collapsing venue in like the armpit of New Jersey, and like the worst month of the year to be in New Jersey? What exactly is the point of all this? And so obviously this first intro is kind of like a quick emotional appeal, and I don't feel like I want to just come out and say like, oh, I love video games because I was a loser and it helped me feel like a little bit better. I feel like I wanted to illustrate that in some way. I also thought that this image right here was really funny, of like this mysterious professional player standing on top of the Twin Towers with lightning in the background. And I did think that was cool as hell. Like I remember seeing this exact ad when I was a kid. I thought it was rad as hell. That was the coolest damn thing. I have that the duelist right here. But like, I was just like, wow, you could become a professional playing Magic the Gathering. This is the coolest thing. Everybody tells me that this is like a really lame thing to do. And then the hammer was like somewhat infamous for like being this big, somewhat physically intimidating person in a scene that at the time was largely like skinny, nerdy folks, right? So I think there's that intentional like dissonance there. Like it's very difficult to take the hammer seriously, I think. But we did at the time, right? I felt like he felt like a scary person. I did my best to set up like a board state that reminded me of like playing Magic at like summer camp or something back in the 90s. I feel like I got away pretty well with that. And then the ping pong, the animation clips are to me the thing that glued together these disparate stories, right? There are 3 distinct failures that make up this piece. I wanted to tell a story about Apex 2015, but it turns out that Apex 2015 is a really difficult event to try to tell a story about, because every attempt that I've seen to tell a story about it amounts to either like a news report or a summary of tournament records. And to me, neither of those are interesting and neither of those are storytelling. This is not, just to be clear, I think Walt's video about this is really, really good. There's one other Apex video that I've seen that's really, really good. And of course, I think Metagame is excellent. I think Metagame is incredibly, incredibly good. And outside of that, most attempts that I've seen to tell a story about what Apex was fail to make it clear why Apex was, why all of us bothered to do any of this. And so I really wanted to tell a story about that, but everybody's experience of Apex was radically different. Like, I did not know that the venue was full-blown collapsing until like a week later, maybe a week and a half later, right? My experience of it, and we can get right in, like my experience of it was I was there on that first day. Let me go to my full Apex string out. And I'm gonna have to avoid some clips though, actually, now that I think about it. I'm not trying to show some of these folks. Apex string out. All right. Project organization is key, by the way, especially when you're working on something this big for this long. So this is what like the original venue looks like. Let me mute this, but I'll let this roll for a minute. There's Gimmer walking up. So the experience that I had was showing up to this venue that I knew nothing about until we got there. Filming this and being like, and I'd been to Apex 2014. Did I go to 2013? I think I went to 2013, but I left early. I know I was at the 2014 Salty Suite. I remember that because I filmed AMSA versus DJ Nintendo. I think I might have watched 2013 from home, but my expectation, this lined up with my expectation of Apex. I was like, this place is a piece of shit. Apex is consistently just a miserable place to be every year, despite being like such a great event. And I didn't really know that anything was wrong throughout all of this until the next morning, right? Like Gimmer came in right before Chillin' and I started filming the diss track video, and started chatting to us about like some challenges that he'd been having. And then we had to like basically quickly record a few takes of the video so we could get this get this done and out in time for the Salty Suite. That's the very first take right there, very first full take of it. Fun fact, the audio from this was kind of messed up for a variety of reasons, so we wound up having to actually re-record it after all of this happened. Apex was consistently a bad tournament because one, the organizational structure of it is really weak. So much of it revolved around the emotional landscape of the TO, and the TO was not a particularly great person and was prone to rapidly changing their mind on almost everything. So you wound up with an event that was never properly staffed with people who had the information they need to make the event run well. Apex 2014, I was playing Luigi Dittos with Voodoo Jin in the friendlies room, watching teams winners finals at like 3 a.m. or something in and that was just basically what Apex always was. It was, you were showing up, you weren't going to sleep. When people don't sleep, they don't play their best melee. You know, all of the pools are going to run way late. A lot of people are going to get away with scummy stuff that they shouldn't get away with. You know, it was in many ways the perfect representation for a certain period of this professional Smash community's life. It was very, very jankily thrown together, and it showed, I think, a lot of the challenges of grassroots organization, especially early on. You know, I think there's a lot of complexities to it, and a lot of like personal issues that underlie a lot of it. So I don't pretend to know like all of the details there. I just know that working for Apex made it quite clear how much this event was buoyed by like basically emotional dysregulation. Now this whole event, this whole part right here was crazy because in the finished video you'll see that there's like all these people that are asking like, well, when, you know, what's going to happen to pools, and then they have to keep telling them, we're not going to disqualify you, we're not going to disqualify you. But like as I walked around the whole venue, none of us knew why the fire alarm was going off. There very well could have been like a genuine threat to our lives, and folks were still just obsessed with whether or not their pools were going to be delayed, which to me is just like expected from an Apex. But yeah, and then this, I think this moment right here is wild. Is there a situation here? It's a heck of a question to ask after passing several active emergency vehicles. But trying to tell a story about Apex is tough because I didn't film a lot of this stuff right here. Most of this footage here comes from Phil, Nolan. I filmed this. As soon as I filmed everybody panicking about what we're going to do next, I realized, oh shit, Chillin and I have to finish doing the diss track video. And I ran upstairs real quick to get that set up. And then in order to make this part here, I reached out to Phil Nolan and to Sam Ox and to Esteban Martinez and got some footage from them to help piece that together. So shout outs to them. See, I'm not going to dive too deeply into this because this segment makes me pretty sad watching my friend get whooped on stage. I will say there are a few shots here that are that I was very lucky to get. That thing swinging around. Where's the bit where, yeah, this bit. I love this. I have no idea who this person is right here, but I was so lucky to just turn and catch them desperately asking what it was that was going on here. That was a lucky catch. I also love the person dropping the sign down right before that. That was another lucky shot of mine. Most of this footage here is mine. Of course, the mango challenge. I love this shot. That right there. That felt very WWE to me in a lot of ways.
I saw that, I was like, Mango, you're like one of the greatest players of all time. Leffen, this is a new guy. Like, when you say pick on someone your own size, you're too big.
It's really how it felt then. It really did feel like this was not even going to be close. And then right here, I say like, I forgot I was filming. That is true. I was so devastated by this. And I had a little bit of money riding on this. So thanks a lot, Mango. And yeah, I remember at the time, like, at least among folks I knew, like, none of us were like, oh, PB's definitely got this. A lot of us had him obviously as like a potential winner, but it had just sort of been a while since he'd like put up, especially against somebody playing as hot as Leffen. This is my bit rate's dropping. I hope everything's still okay here. All right, so we're gonna dive into some of the fun little bits about this frame here. I tried to not hide, but I tried to put a lot of subtle little references into this frame. This would have been a copy of Super Smash Bros. 64, except I do not own a copy of Super Smash Bros. 64. In the back left, there is the Duelist magazine that you see a few times throughout. There's also a copy of this book, which is called Understanding Gush, which is a very long treatise on one of the most powerful like cards in Magic the Gathering history. And it's like a several 100-page breakdown of all the different ways that this card can be used and leveraged. And through it, you can learn a lot about game design in general, and a lot about hyper-competitive game design. And it's a super, super cool book, and it's exactly the sort of thing that you might read with the expectation that it would help you become a better Magic the Gathering player, and then not actually become a better Magic the Gathering player. Over here, we've got a copy of Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is pretty impossible to see in this shot. There's a couple other shots where it's a little bit more clear, along with a copy of The Will to Keep Winning. Got the Inner Game of Melee up there. Fabulous book. I have the Jim Jam Flim Flam book somewhere. I don't know where it went. I loved that book. I definitely still have it. I haven't lost it. It's in some book box. I've also got obviously copies of both the Smash Bros. And Metagame. Mild complaints to Sam Ox for not having the titles line up properly. You actually have to flip Metagame upside down in order to get them to line up. And then back here is this this box, which I got from Zenith 2013, from donating to Zenith 2013. Clash Tournaments did a raffle, and it's a box that is signed by like pretty much all of the top players who were at that event, including Trihex. I've got Toph's signature on here. There's Mango up top. We got Wobbles, Shrooms, M2K. Anyway, after being away from Melee for like a long time, that's like winning that box in the raffle really got me way back into Melee. I stopped playing shortly after Brawl came out, and then didn't really pick it back up again until around 2012, and won that shortly thereafter. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into this. And then this controller right here is actually the controller that was inside of it that got used. So yeah, so again, all of these gameplay clips are actually recorded from a VHS, which helps create a really, really awesome effect here, where you can actually see the individual like I forget what they're called. It's not pixels on a CRT screen, but like the little diodes or whatever that that receive the light. That receive like the output from the electron gun, and it helps those shots feel really tactile to me. And again, all of these are normalized at 30 frames per second because they're on VHS. Normally I don't like showing melee gameplay when it's not 60 frames a second, but I think in this case it was worth sacrificing some of that for the unity, especially because so much of what we're showing is old footage. Let's see here. We're going to talk about, or I'm going to show off some of the deleted scenes here soon. I don't need to dive into like the super specifics of all that. This shot is specifically here to kind of conjure up the image of gardening for others, right? Like of coming into a community like Smash and contributing what you can for other people to hopefully be able to build off of in the future, to just enjoy, right? Like whether it's advancing a character or advancing streams or helping to customize controllers or whatever else. Like there's so many different ways that you can have an impact on the community that grows into something much bigger than what you'd originally done. These scenes are sweet. I'm happy to talk about these, but I don't think I have a lot to say other than you know, those moments from Ping Pong the animation mean quite a lot to me. It helps me understand quite a bit about myself and about losing, about what it means to really give your all at something. I feel like most people that love Melee have had an experience that feels like this. And I think the best part is that you don't have to have this at the top level of play. Like you don't have to be PPMD or Armada to feel the way that this scene in Ping Pong the animation feels like. It's just one of those nights when you're playing with someone that you know you've played with a long time. You both have really great games, and then something just clicks, and you just like get into that flow state. And even losing feels fun. I don't know. I think most of us can identify with that experience, and this is the best attempt I think I've made at showing what that feeling was. Let's see. This shot right here where I like fall off the skateboard. This is real. It was like my second or third time on the board. I thought it looked way cooler than I did there. But that hurt like a bitch. That hurt very badly. That one didn't hurt so much, but it was pretty embarrassing. Now I can at least ride around the thing without falling over. I can do a few other things, but it's, you know, I wanted to be able to board slide the curb by the time I was releasing this video. I was like really determined to do that, and then just before I went to try to film those scenes, I sprained my ankle. I've still been recovering, but still happy with what I'm able to do. This interview here actually came from Samox. Shout outs to Samox. Thank you, Samox, so much, because it was very difficult to make everything feel unified at the end, right? You start with the story of Apex and what a failure that was. And in a way, Apex was all the better because it failed. I think if Apex hadn't failed, it would have been a significantly worse event. Failing, having to come up with a whole new alternate plan is specifically what made Apex such a monumental event. So that's why that's included here. I often think about that and how impactful that event was on me, because you know, there's something almost anarchic about it, where without any real material incentive, none of us were going to make money off of Apex happening at this point. None of us were going to like benefit in any material way from doing it. We just really wanted this to happen, and so everybody stepped up with whatever their abilities were and contributed however they could to make this event happen. And it really gave me like a lot of faith in community in a way that I didn't really have before. So the second bit is all about the story of Chillin', which I've wanted to tell a few ways, but it's really difficult to tell, you know, to make a documentary about that time your friend got the shit kicked out of them on stage. So I didn't really know how to turn that into like a full length film. And I wound up realizing that those two overlapped pretty well with the history of Marth as PPMD laid it out. Because in many ways, I think Marth wouldn't have advanced as far had there not been that period of time where everybody lost faith. I think that is a part of what motivated PPMD to push that. So in all of those cases, the failure was like a necessary part of the later success. And, you know, I think a lot of that is what is all tied together here at the end by the PPMD interview, where he talks about how you know, you need a safe space to lose. You need a place where it's okay to lose, where you can lose and learn about the shortcomings of your character and develop and grow as a person. And then of course the bit where he talks about Zane was just incredible. That was ultimately the thing that inspired me to make a content piece about PPMD, was looking at this interview in 2022. I think it was the end of 2022. I'd sent a message to Walt and I was like, hey, I want to make like a 4-hour video about PPMD versus Leffen. That was one of the original concepts for this that fell apart. And originally it was going to be like genuinely like every 10 to 15 seconds of gameplay that we see, it would be like, hey, what's the history of this gameplay sequence? Where else have we seen this situation explored? And what are like all the different ways that a player handled this situation? Obviously, we did not wind up getting to go that deep. Let me close that project. So let me find some of the scenes that didn't make it in here. So we've got a whole segment about PPU and the HBox.
That's when I was trying to innovate a lot of stuff for Marth.
Yeah, so this bit unfortunately didn't make it in because I really wanted to talk about pivoting. Pivoting is so critical to what Marth is now. But when all said and done, I couldn't tell a coherent story that included a reference to pivoting without having to do what we talked about earlier, where it was like, I need to explain what a pivot is, right? And the moment that I have to explain what a pivot is, I think that the whole third section stops working. I think that whole third section where we're going like, oh, here's here's how Asin handled stuff. Here's how power shielding look, with I'm brain farting on this because I'm juggling like 12 things in my brain at once. Where is it? Where is that bit?
Consistent, well thought out way to play.
Oh, that bit's so good. Actually, we should watch through that because I have a few more things to say about that. Yeah, Fast Like Tree, Korean DJ. Who was right after that? Who am I forgetting here? It's hurting my soul that I'm forgetting this. The movement. This is it right here. Heartbreak Kid. Thank God. That was gonna bother me all day. Heartbreak Kid. Yeah, HBK. So like if this segment right here, which is really, really aggressively paced, it's only about 2 minutes long, ultimately, where we're like really seeing all of his influences in a row. That that scene, I think, would have worked a lot less if we had to stop and explain any of those mechanics.
That's when I was trying to innovate a lot of stuff for Marth. I was kind of against the grain of like what the Marths of the time were doing. I always liked playing like a little rebellious and like doing like little flashy reverse hitboxes. I was trying to get like the Marth community to rethink how they think about Marth hitboxes. For his moves, he has like the inside hit, the outside hit, the reverse hit. Some moves are like softer, and like it really came to fruition at Apex against Hungrybox. I kind of debuted a technique that was only kind of like talked about among like Marth nerds on Smashboards. Yeah, I am talking about the pivot F smash. Shout out to Cardano, shout out to Arc. Those are the dudes who actually invented it. I merely brought it to a high level, but those dudes did all the work for me. It was such a surprise for Hungrybox. Like, he had no idea what the counterplay was, and it made like the rest of my game like so threatening. Like, he was doing everything he could to not get grabbed because he didn't know what to expect, you know? I would say that's like, I don't know, my biggest contribution. I don't think I ever even replicated that, which is funny.
The thing about Pew.
So we'll jump in here and listen to PPMD's thoughts on pivoting and arcing in just a moment, or excuse me, arc and pivoting in just a moment. But you know, I really wanted to include that bit from PPU. Unfortunately, PPU didn't make it into the final as much as I would have liked. In part because a lot of things that he's talking about there, you really do have to illustrate in some way. When he's talking about the soft hitboxes, nobody's going to know what a soft hitbox is unless I really illustrate that on screen. And to me, that was something that made the viewer of this video stop and think about something other than the emotional content of what's going on. I actually wound up testing this scene with a friend of mine who's not into gaming and certainly not into Smash Brothers, to make sure that she could follow along and understand like what the implications of all of these different scenes were, right? That we see PPMD learning over time. So I worked hard to make sure that this was still legible to somebody like that. And I think that if I had to stop and showcase like all of the different soft hitboxes and what that means, I would not have been able to do that as effectively.
PPU and pivoting. When he did that set with HBox, he got, I think, two. I went back and watched. I think he got 2 pivots. I think he attempted 3 or 4, but the 2 pivots he got, I believe, were both in one game. So they made a difference because I think he got kills off of both of them. But the way he was doing the pivot also required a very specific percent and a very specific DI from HBox and a specific reaction from PPU. Pivoting is actually really complicated, and I know this because, not because I studied it, but because there's a player who took it farther. Arc from Texas. He studied under Fast Like Tree, learned the various pivot setups that were there. They were mostly for kills, kind of like what we see today. And then Arc spent, you know, a lot of time like trying to figure out how to pivot tipper F smash and neutral. And you know, at 90% against the Fox, if you hit a weak hit down tilt, you could pivot tipper them out of that, and you could kill them. So you had kill setups for when you normally couldn't combo. So he was coming up with stuff to get around like what we call Marthritis and other things. And it was very interesting, very innovative. And it was something that I've always wanted to really pursue and show people that could be done. He showed how just busted the pivot grab was in the Puff matchup. You could get grabs through pivot grab. You could grab her back air if she did anything but a full drift away. And then from that, you can get so much off throw and forward and down throw off of pivoting, especially forward throw. And him and Cardano, the Smashboards kind of frame data knowledge guru, they together mapped out percent ranges and her DI at the percent ranges and what your follow-up options were. Like at one point, your best option is not to pivot tipper, it's to dash wave dash down smash, and down smash will tipper and kill her. So there's a bunch of really interesting, nuanced things like that people haven't really talked about. Now, people do know it because Cardano is posted on Smashboards. Some people know it, but it's not mainstream knowledge, and it's certainly not being done at high level. Like, yes, okay, Pew Pew got a couple pivots, but he's tried since then and has missed all of them. Same with Moon. It's not to say that they're bad players. I just don't think it's been understood. I don't think it's been talked about a whole lot yet. I don't think it's been practiced or known in the right way. That's something I really wanted to bring out. That is something that was being worked on in the years where Melee seemed dead and everything. That was when pivoting was like secretly being developed, and even through the Platinum Age, more and more, and then finally we get to Cardano, the optimization of everything. So you can kind of see that you can follow the pivoting progression through the various phases of Melee's lifespan.
It's like that could easily be a 20-minute video on its own, hands down.
Pivoting is something that's not going to really exist until either a player that's practiced it a lot comes up, or a player that's already really good practices it a lot.
Shout out to Zane. So that whole section is super interesting to me. I tried a bunch of times to work it into the final. I wound up sharing it with Finally James. Finally James was like, you have to just give up on this angle. Like, the pivoting stuff just adds way too much confusion. And that's right. We're trying to talk about PPMD versus Leffen. And it took a lot of discipline to say, like, okay, I can't suddenly start talking about pivoting and the puff matchup. Even though, like, it feels relevant because PPU is also in this piece and that happened at this event. That's not relevant to this telling of Apex. I think that's what I meant earlier when I said that, like, Apex is a difficult event to tell a story about, because if you tell someone everything that happened at Apex that was important, it's too much information, and the gravity of all of these individual storylines slips away. There were 2,000 people in the bracket or whatever, and that's 2,000 different stories. There were so many different understandings of what that event was, and unfortunately, the understanding of this event as the place where PPU debuted Ark's, Ark's pivoting research, that storyline had to be scrapped in order for the other storyline to make more coherent sense. And yeah, shout out to Ark. Totally agree. Ark is incredible. I snuck Ark into as many little spots where I could, right? When I'm talking about early on, when I'm talking about the videos that I made, we got this shot right here of Ark winning something. Obviously, Ark shows up again when I mentioned it. I reused that Ark winning shot later when I'm talking about content that I got to make somewhere in there. But yeah, Ark is awesome. Very cool person. So I thought that was a super interesting thing. I still might try to make like a more coherent deleted scene, like to turn this into something that makes more sense. But it's tough. I feel like, in a way, especially when it starts talking about all the different options that are available, it would be really cool to have just been able to dive into this and make this its own 20-minute section where it's like, what are all those different options? What do all of them look like? And kind of like what you're talking about, Arrow, about like the history of a mix-up. I feel like this is exactly fertile ground for that. So I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity to do something with that, but I don't really think I'm making another Melee piece for a while. I don't have much to say about like the modern landscape of Melee. I like watching sometimes, but I think Genesis 4 was like the last event that I was really, really glued in on. PPU versus PPMD. It took several attempts to get the Ken scene down. Is this one of the earlier?
Idea why? It took me all this studying and learning and unlearning all the conventional ways to think before I could finally start seeing Ken's stuff as effective for what it was. Be your own person. Do your thing.
That was like one of the first scenes that I made for this, because once I did figure out what the concept was that I wanted to go with, this was again a concept that failed. But I was like, I'm going to show this event. I'm going to show the set that matters the most to me personally. This set, me being there watching, the set was incredible. This is my clearest memory from Apex by far. And I just wanted to show, like, where did all of these things that PPMD do come from? All of them. I wanted to break this down. It was going to be like 4 hours. And then I realized that was silly. It was going to be like a couple hundred people maybe that would have wanted to watch that. There's nothing that would merit that being like a 4-hour video versus like doing a stream about it. And if I'm going to do a 4-hour stream about the history of Marth, who the fuck am I to do it? There are many people that know significantly more about the history of Marth than me. Yeah, that beginning bit, the hey everyone, look to me. To me, that's kind of like the core of this video, because not to demean myself or anything, but I don't consider myself to be the sort of person that's like, hey, you should live the way I live. Like I'm quite happy with my life, and I think sometimes I like sharing advice with people that want to hear some, but usually it's only about something that's specifically asked of me. But in this case, like I've seen people lately talking about, you know, I think it was around this time 2 years ago where I saw a lot of people like, oh, what value does an O2 player add to the scene? And my answer is a lot, like a whole lot. You don't have a scene without O2 players. Half of the people at any given event are O2 players. Half of the pot is funded by people who don't win a game. And I don't want to come out here and say, hey everyone, look at me. I know what this is, but I do want to be like, hey, like, I think it is a good use of your time, if you love Melee, to invest yourself into the thing that you love so very much, whether that be playing or making content or designing controllers or whatever else, and see what happens. Like, maybe you fail, maybe, but what an awesome failure that's going to be. And that really is like the point of, you know, Apex was a failure, but what an awesome failure. You know, Marth at the time felt like a failure of a character on the eve of like 20XX. I'm sure that at least one of the like 6 viewers here was around during that time and like remembers that, you know, 2013, it was like, oh shit, Fox is all there. Like, is it Fox or Falco? And maybe Sheik can like do it too, because we're starting to discover like the Sheik chain grab thing. But there wasn't anybody that was like seriously thinking that Marth was going to be it. So like Marth had lost a bunch. You know, Chillin lost a bunch, and that wound up being one of the best parts of his career. And so you don't want to be like, hey everybody, look at me, like watch me lose. But like when you watch people who lose with huge stakes on it, you can learn a lot about, I don't know, how to live, how to be a decent person. I feel like, you know, the person who gets second place at any given event, that's like Olympic level losing, right? I mean, it takes a hard ass soul to be able to handle like a loss so close to the finish line, I think. And I think sometimes that's why we watch competition, like not just because we're rooting for people, but because we kind of want to see how people handle getting the shit kicked out of them. And yeah, this moment right here, I love this shot. I wish I could have used it. This was my first like experience interacting with Amsa much. No, that's not true. I hung out with him a little bit at Apex 2014 actually, after the Salty Suite, because he was on VGBC. And so was I at the time. Anyway, so you know, one of the little editing tricks right here, I have this bit where whoever this person is shows me the money that he made off of betting on Mango, or betting on Amsa beating Mango. And I wound up in the actual final, I stuck that into the shot where Leffen beats Mango, because it made more sense to my story. So yeah, there's a lot of little things like that. Let me see. I got a couple other deleted scenes that I'll show off, and then I'll wrap up here. But there's so much that I still want to like develop here. You know, this one video, we have the full thing on the Last Dark Legends YouTube, but it's basically super duper early examples of advanced techniques. Suicide Fox back in 2004, and like I just wanted to show off like so many of the great names in here. Reflecto Smash, Reflecto Grab, back in the pre Smash Boards days. And I really had wanted for a while to show like a lot of things. There's a lot of little jokes here that didn't make it into. Like early on, we see Chillin' Dude, and his little lower part of his lower third is just before the most important match of his career. And then this is, you know, him beating Ken. It's the second most important match of his career. And then here you can see where I'm like,
Go high.
Oh wow!
trying to find these clips that line up.
For a shorten. I'm not 100% sure, but
And it is interesting because you can really see like all of the places that that PPMD was studying. And then like it was really fun for me to go back when he mentioned a set and he was like, "Oh, I learned from this set," to be able to go back and like watch it and see a moment where I'm like, "Oh shit, that's literally like I saw that in the event." To get that, I wound up having to watch PPMD versus Leffen like 5 times, which is fine because I'd already watched it 100 times. This is one thing that really caught me is Matt.Zeb getting the shit kicked out of him by Korean DJ. But this like the subtle charge right after this, I love like how similar the timing is. And that's the sort of thing that tells you that like PPMD's done his research. Like he knows kind of exactly how long he has to
Wow, the charge!
to execute that. So yeah, it was really fun like getting to go through and look at that. And there's a lot of other little bits that didn't get put in. Where is that? I've got a string out of most of the gameplay selects. So yeah, there's that moment.
scary. That's a scary decision.
So this is one that I wound up having to cut because I talked with Kevin before I released this because I want to make sure that I wasn't showing anything that was like historically inaccurate. And I was like, I swear to God,
With the immediate nair,
like,
he could have gone.
your movement and Fast Like Trees movement look almost identical to me.
Running away with this game, he's looking so solid compared to.
It was just like right there. I don't know why it got knocked out of sync, but like I was like, is this where you developed some of that early movement from? He assured me that no, this is not where he researched that. So I wound up having to cut that, but part of me still wonders if maybe deep down he didn't just like absorb it through osmosis. Early on is where this is the HBK moment. Anywhere there's a marker is one where I found like a similar example in a different game. But I wound up really going with examples that were on the same stage, just because that made it more legible, easier to understand. Let's see. Yeah, here's an example of one that's not on the same stage.
To keep these dash and throw him back, he's got an opportunity here. Forward throws him instead of the up throw.
And you can see PPMD has to alternate like his throws. He can't. Exactly, definitely making a statement. PPMD with the immediate nair. He could have gotten shined. Smart.
Yeah, that's a scary decision to make for PP, to be sure. Wow, Leffen is running away with this.
Yeah, their movement just looks so similar to me. Anyway, so yeah, this is basically how I would do it. Is I would lay out the videos side by side whenever I thought that I found a match. You know, just like compare them with one another. Oh yeah, this is 100. This is exactly what I mean. Like, does this not look crazy similar to y'all? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Let me pull this over.
PP's dash dance is so.
Am I crazy?
PP's dash dance is so intimidating.
Anyway, it's fine. I believe Kevin.
PP's dash dance is so intimidating.
He obviously knows way more than me, but to me that just seems dead on.
PP's dash dance is so intimidating.
Anyway, so yeah, this was really fun to do. You know, I love this set. I love a lot of the old sets that he was talking about, especially that PC Chris set. So good. Where is that? PC versus Court. Yeah. So many cool moments. I mean, I wanted to make like, maybe I still will. I wanted to make like a combo video out of the PC Chris versus Court set because there are some funny ass moments in here. Oh, so good. I love that. And like you can totally see where PPMD is like getting his influence from here, and where he's like basically learning how to use Marth's existence as pressure here in the way that these two are playing. That is some 2000s era stuff right there. Yeah, those sets are great. Maybe I'll drop links or something in the chat. But yeah, there's also some really good moments. I have this great PC Chris clip when he walked up there, but I didn't really know where to use it. Got wife and husband there. There's one particularly good Marth Fox clip is really highlights the drunkenness of these sets. I'll find it some other. Oh no, it's in here. I used it. That's right. I used it right here. Yeah. All right. This is great. I love this clip. So I'm going to show this. We're going to show this in full. This moment right here, it really shows off how drunk these
friendlies
sets were.
Over the course of a week or something. That was what really I built a lot of my Marth off of, was those two playing.
Get your abs, just turn around and keep doing it. Nope. Get back over there. Just keep doing it. Still worked. It still worked. Even try to go above, you can't go above. Anyway, that was I think a wild clip to stick in right when PPMD is talking about how he learned from that set. So those sets are really good though. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in there. Let's see what else got cut out. Got the Euro Marth. Let's see, I uploaded that. I did that as its own deleted scene.
One, that one is just.
Yeah, there's a bit here about combo videos. I think that's also been uploaded as its own video. There's also
a bunch of different weird stuff that like no one would.
Of Neo.
And Neo is actually a big influence on Marth. Mewtwo King took a lot of stuff from Neo. There were other people that taught Mewtwo King, but his main inspiration, this guy Neo, goes back to before Mewtwo King. Also had a good Roy. People don't really talk about Roy that much, but he had a Roy. It was pretty good. He was featured in the documentary in the crew battle very briefly, where he destroyed the crew pretty much. But I've talked to Neo a few times myself, and he said Mewtwo King looked exactly like my Marth. He just took everything, and he ran with it.
Now, of course, this PPMD interview originally had absolutely nothing to do with Apex. This was purely an interview about like Marth.
Every single different way you can.
And Marth's history.
And other things, and it was very interesting, very innovative, and it was something that I've always wanted to really pursue and show people that could be done. That is something that was being worked on in the.
There's the pivoting stuff, how to practice wave dashing. I think we got one more deleted scene to show off. Let's see, did arc and pivoting.
I just wanted a piece of camera.
It's PPMD's philosophy. This is it. All right, so this is the last bit of deleted content, and then we'll wrap up the stream for today. But this is a bit that was cut, unfortunately, that I think is really good. It just it was just like a little bit too much fluff in a scene that was otherwise very lean and very like aggressively paced. You know, I think if if part 3 had successfully been its own thing, this would have been the centerpiece of that, right? Like if this had wound up being just a story about Marth, this is what I would have used as the anchor for that.
Cactuar, he lost confidence in Marth when a lot of other people did after Brawl came out. He said, the game's too fast now, it's not going to work. This is what he was teaching me. And I said, I don't care, teach me anyway. Because I was like, I think Marth can do it. So whatever, you're going to teach me. And so he taught me. Umbreon Mal taught me, who taught Mewtwo King. Cactuar's main contributions to the meta, he does an up throw and then he does a down throw, and then like they're confused because they think they're going to keep getting up throw and they miss their tech, so he tippers them. You still see people go for that. He was the one who invented it, and he did it just because he hated chain grabbing. He didn't care for punishes. That's all Cactus likes to do, is play neutral all the time. He always found a way to like get cheeky extra hits when he did get an opening. That was his main contribution to the game. But he had a lot of good movement decisions, very calculated, very slow, very under the radar player. He could have been extremely influential had he, stuck around with Marth for longer. When I learned from Cactuar and Umbreon Mao, I learned in like a classical, formal training kind of way. Like, this is how the character flows, this is how your threats work. He's a character that's already, you have to be straightforward. So it made sense that my training with Marth would be more formal. What I did was take neutral ideas that I learned from studying with Cactus, going back, seeing what they did right and taking it, and like seeing that in my own way and not through Mewtwo King. I showed that you could dance around people, you could extend his threat range really far so that even if they were fast, they still had to deal with a massively long threat range.
PPMD dash dance.
And then that bit wound up getting cut and moved on. There is another segment to that as well, where he talks about something. This is what makes him not Marth. I might have to go back to an even older version here. Actually, I'll just go to my We're gonna go to a real old version here. It's gonna be upset with me for a minute. But yeah, there's a bunch of, oh yeah, it's lost everything, hasn't it? Should be in here. All right. So my interview here, did this come through all right? All right, it did.
Fast after Brawl came out, because, well, we just wanted to show how. So one final thing about Ice that is actually, relevant to him is because people started caring a lot about being fast after Brawl came out, because
looks like I lost everybody.
Well, we just wanted to show how hyped the game was, and we just got it to become grind monsters like that and thought that was the cool thing. Ice was like that with Marth. He was showing how to be like fast in a way that, even Mewtwo King wasn't matching at the time. So we watched his practice, and he was just gliding super fast, and we just never seen anything like it before. And it's very satisfying, and he could do a little bit of it in a match, but it's not as practical all the time. So if I were to say anything else, I would say that Ice's movement, particularly in his practice, really captured a lot of people's imagination. He's always been someone that's like, not nearly as much now, but back then he was always someone that's like, we know he's good, we know that he's put in a lot of work, we know he could be really good, but it just seems like he's not quite there. He doesn't have that thing. So I'd say that was Ice's situation.
I would have loved to have included that, but unfortunately, like, it just didn't tie into the broader story.
I always felt that was kind of crippling, and so that led to a lot of defeatist mindset.
Let's see, this bit here. Yeah, German Fox Ice. German Fox Ice used to be known much more for his Marth originally, back in like the early 2010s, especially late 2000s, and then he wound up picking up Sheik and Fox around the same time that M2K, like, he started playing his Sheik and his Fox more once M2K picked it up, basically, because he was following a lot of the conventional wisdom that Marth just couldn't keep up with the faster gameplay.
We're all jumping forward with Nair, which is incredibly unsafe. They were all just like...
I love this bit. I wound up having to cut this bit, but this is what I meant when I said that this would be like the centerpiece of it. It's this clip, not the other clip that I showed earlier.
So a big problem for Marth was they did want to be fast during, especially the Brawl years. They were all jumping forward with Nair, which is incredibly unsafe. They were all just like, I want to shield pressure, do a bunch of moves on your shield, and just go crazy, push a bunch of buttons. And Marth's not a character built for that. And that was really frustrating for me, again, as someone that like wanted to show Marth was good, but was focused on Falco. People were always saying, you know, Marth can't do it, and then I'd watch them play, and they'd just be running at the other guy pushing buttons, and it's like, well, no wonder. I mean, that's not what Marth's made to do. But they would just say, oh, you know, you don't know, you didn't get results in tournament. I'm just like, oh, okay. So that's probably been Marth's biggest problem, is they think they're a space animal, and they're not. And they're getting past that now. They're kind of returning to trying to play the game simpler, more fundamentally. So I was talking to someone about this on the Marth boards recently. You need to be able to go as fast as possible with Marth, but that does not mean you should go as fast as possible. You just need to be able to know how to save your frames, be quick when you need to be up tempo in a situation that demands it, or your opponent plays slower, so you want to be faster to throw them off, you know, whatever. You want to be able to go faster, but it shouldn't be the main way. And then again, Marth's top speed is going to be much lower than Fox, Falco, Falcon top speed. Those are all going to be much faster.
That bit, especially the bit where he talks about how you have to save your frames and stuff. It goes so hard with the right music. Pull this down.
And so you have to kind of keep the character construct.
Where's the one? There's something else
In your mind when you're trying to do this. So if you love shield pressure and you love pushing buttons on shield, Marth is not the character for you. He's just not. I don't care how you do it. He's not the character for you. If you like thinking very carefully about each of your inputs, you like, you know, sometimes taking your time, or like letting your positional pressure really affect the opponent, Marth is the character for you.
Yeah,
you can spare their shield once and you can stand there and they cannot do anything. That's shield pressure. But people don't like that so much now. So so I think that's part of why Marth suffers, because you think, if I got optimized, I got to be fast, and I got.
That could easily have been like the anchor of its own piece. I think as like kind of the big culminating moment, right? We figured out how Marth works. This is the music and the speech that gets us there. So yeah, those are most of the best bits that didn't make it in. Like I said, I also have an entire Falco interview.
The videos, grinding the videos, and before Herb 3 in particular, I remember I was at a friend's house because he.
All about Falco, the same idea, right? It's the history of Falco. Really interesting stuff. Maybe one day I'll find some use for that. But in the meantime, until I feel compelled, this is probably it for like Smash related content for me. You know, I don't think I have much more to share of interest that's like, you know, a Smash related insight. You know, hopefully I'll find like a way to like make it to some tournaments and stuff like that from time to time. But for the most part, you know, this video was my attempt to just kind of say like, this is what Smash meant to me. This is the learning that I took away from it. And yeah, you know, I really mostly want to do this stream to kind of, I guess, honestly, also show off how much work I put into this, because I think sometimes there's this idea that like these videos are just like thrown together with like a bunch of footage that I grabbed, but this was this was genuinely like a labor of love for over a year and a half. This got me through a very long period of struggling to find consistent work, right? In a terrible job market. This got me through some really difficult personal life challenges, having something like this to work on. And as much as these scenes may seem very simple now, a lot of them took a lot of work and technique to put together into things that felt cohesive. And there's a lot of just like little subtle things. You know, I teach a film class as well sometimes. I took this semester off, but I'd like to go back again next year. And I was just trying to, you know, teach my students the importance of things like match cuts. Like if you want to draw a connection between one scene and another, you want to match, you know, match cuts are a pretty great way to do that. You want to go from talking about the hero to showing PPMD and imply that he's the hero. That's a really good way to get there. And there's a lot of that. There are tons and tons of subtle little cuts, right? This whole chillin' scene, there's a cut right here when the camera gets picked up, like right there where I go from there to being much closer to them. That I cut out like 2 minutes in between there. We don't go straight from this. It takes a while before Siren was like ready to do it, but like it flows nice and neatly. Like, you know, it's one of those cuts that you obviously see once you know it's there, but that feels and flows pretty effortlessly in the actual edit because of the way that the action lines up between the two clips. And so when I put this much like grinding into this, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of that. So if you made it onto this stream, thank you. Thanks for listening to me as I talked about this. Happy to answer any last minute questions, but otherwise I'm going to wrap it up. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch the video. Please share it still if you haven't shared it with people. I'd appreciate every last little bit of sharing. I don't have any like social media or anything anymore, so